Okay, so we're going to do something a little different this week. Normally I'm making videos about lawn care and snow removal, but seeing how the last year has went and a couple of friends have encouraged me to do this, um, from Monday till Friday this week is feeding tube awareness week, and those of you who follow me on Instagram and that and kind of been following my channel for a while know that for the last couple of months I've had a feeding tube, and I'm gonna go inside where it's warm, and we're gonna go through kind of my whole last year and this whole thing with this and what I've learned about having a feeding tube and what I haven't, and that. If you find this interesting, give the video a thumbs up. There'll be a couple other ones this week, and if you don't follow me on Instagram, that is always linked down below in the description, and there'll be other videos over there this week. But let's go inside where it's warm. So yeah, we'll sit down here where it's warmer. So, why have a feeding tube? That's a long story, but I'm going to get into that. But to put into perspective kind of how this is all went, that binder right there is all my medical records from last year. All the appointments I was at, and it's split out full. Like, it was a long year. So, I'm just going to start at the beginning, and sorry if you guys are bored. I don't know how long a video this is going to be. I don't script my videos. This is off the cuff, and this is kind of what you guys get. But I got a calendar up here on my tablet, and I'm going to kind of start at the beginning. So at the end of January 2022, so about a year ago, well, over a year ago, the 23rd, I started having stomach aches, and I thought it was just a stomach flu at first. You know, it took me a few while to figure out what was going on, but I didn't go to the doctor right away. I kind of held off for 2 weeks just because I didn't want to go to the doctor and be told, oh, it's just viral, go back home, and or it's a stomach bug, just because it's got to run its course. You know how doctors can be once in a while. So I waited 2 weeks. So it was first February 8th that I went to see my primary care doctor, and in that time I kind of figured out that every time I ate, I would feel like crap. I'd feel like I had to throw up. I would feel like I'd have stomach cramps. I'd feel like I had to throw up. It just wasn't good every time I ate, and I couldn't really figure out why. So I see my primary care doctor on February 8th, and the first thing that they thought it was acid reflux. So I got put on over-the-counter acid reflux medication, and didn't help. I seen her 2 weeks later again, and then she put me on a prescription acid reflux medication. So and when she put me on the prescription acid reflux medication, she also scheduled me for make sure I get this right, EGD. So an EGD, I basically call it a reverse colonoscopy. Instead of going backwards up, they go down your throat, check out your esophagus, your stomach, and part of your intestines. And if it was acid reflux, they would see scarring and stuff like that in the esophagus. If it was like an ulcer or anything like that in the stomach, they would see that. There's a whole bunch of different things they can check on that. And when I went to that, they didn't really find anything out of the ordinary. And the doctor that did that prescribed a different medication, which is for irritable bowel syndrome, which is an anti-spasmatic, so it keeps your intestines from spasming and contracting as much. And that kind of made it worse. So a week later, I see my primary care doctor again, and she goes, well, if that's not helping, why? And we were talking, and I was talking with her, and she kept asking me, like, well, what do you experience? What do you this and that? And I kept saying, I go to her, I was just kind of sitting there thinking, I'm like, I don't know if this helps at all, but every time I eat, You know how you eat Taco Bell or something, and an hour later you burp it up and you can taste the Taco Bell yet? Well, this was everything I ate, whether it was pizza, whether it was bread, whether it was eggs, everything I was trying to eat at the time. You know, it wasn't an hour later though. It was 6, 7 hours later that I could burp it up and still have that taste of food in my mouth. Which just didn't seem right to me because, basic health class, you learn that the stomach empties in like a couple hours. So when we discussed that, she brought up, I think I'm going to have you go and have a gastric emptying test done. That leads us to March 23rd, when I had a gastric emptying test. And that test is actually pretty interesting if you've never had one before. It's basically you go to the hospital and they prepare you a meal. And the meal is eggs, 2 pieces of toast, and some jam. And you lay underneath a machine, and it's basically like a big box that sits above your stomach. And basically the food that they make you is laced with like radioactive tracer that they mix in the eggs when they prepare them. And what this camera is called a gamma camera, and it basically watches how much radioactive is coming out of your body, and it can use that to image your stomach and image how much food's in your stomach. And I'll post some pictures on here, and I'll probably do a voiceover on it. But that test is very painful when you have gastroparesis because they want you to eat both eggs, the toast, then you drink a whole cup of water, and I was not really feeling it. And the one I'd had done, the table I was laying on had no like armrest on the side, so they had like this cloth thing that they slipped your arms in, and it had a cloth thing holding like on top of your stomach, which is awesome when you already have a stomach ache from eating the food. But basically that was very exciting, and I was very thrilled about that test. So yeah, that's sarcasm. I'll pop a sticker in right here that I thought was absolutely hilarious. But about a week later, I get a phone call from my primary care doctor, and she goes, "Yeah, you definitely have gastroparesis. We want you to try this medication," which is pretty well a common one for gastroparesis. It's called metoclopramide, and there's a lot of side effects with that prescription. I found out that one of the big hospitals in Wisconsin here does not even prescribe that medication anymore because too many people have side effects to it. So I got prescribed it, and I took about one day's worth of doses. So I took 1 pill in the morning, and I actually went over by a neighbor. I was talking to a neighbor, and I couldn't even keep my eyes open. I was so tired. I came home and I slept. I was going to meet somebody for supper, which I wasn't looking forward to, but I'm like, whatever, I'll meet you. Haven't talked to you for a while. And met him for supper, came back home, and went right back to bed. Slept till about 2 o'clock in the morning and decided, I should get up and take my second dose. And then I was up, so I'm like, I'll check some stuff on the computer, check my emails and this and that. And I started having really bad muscle twitching, which is one of the really main side effects to it that can be permanent. So I immediately stopped taking it after that 3rd dose. And I'm really glad that the pharmacist said to me when I picked up the medication, he goes, if you have any muscle twitching, stop. And so as soon as I started having muscle twitching, I really started reading into I grabbed the paperwork that came with the prescription and really started reading it. And I realized right then and there that I wasn't going to take any more of that. And kind of glad I did, because it took 3 months for that muscle twitching to fully go away and stop. Which was not 3 months. It took 3 weeks for that muscle twitching to go away and stop. So, also in the meantime, she referred me to a GI doctor. And this GI doctor I got referred to was not the greatest. She's actually spent more time trying to prove that it wasn't gastroparesis, which I had already had a diagnosis for, than what it was. So we wasted quite a few weeks with her. So anyways, I seen her April 4th. And a week later, I had a CT scan, and I also seen a nutritionist, because this whole time, I was losing weight. I was losing 1.5 pounds a week. The CT scan was to see if anything else was wrong intestinally wise or anything like that was causing the gastroparesis. And the nutritionist was basically, here's some diets you can try. These are some foods that should be good for gastroparesis, that shouldn't give you side effects or shouldn't give you issues. And there was a list, and you can find it online. It's Cleveland Medical Center gastroparesis diet. And I basically started with the paper, and I just started crossing stuff off that I've ate and had issues with. So that was really one of them things where it was like, thank you, but I've been trying stuff like this, because I actually found that diet like 2 months earlier, because I don't know, I'm the type of person who can't just sit there and wait for somebody else to come up with a solution. If you give me a problem, I'm going to try to find a way for the problem myself. But anyways, so then we went another 3 weeks, and I seen her again, and she goes, well, I want to have you have an X-ray done of your stomach, and I also want you to have another nuclear medicine test with radioactive tracers. So I had an X-ray done of my abdomen to basically see if I was constipated, which was comical because, anyways, like I said, was not the greatest GI doctor. So I also had a nuclear medicine done, a HIDA scan, which is a little bit different. Basically, they would normally give you a medication to make your gallbladder do what your gallbladder is supposed to do. But seeing they couldn't get that medication at the time, what they had you do is drink an Ensure. And with gastroparesis, me drinking a whole Ensure gave me a stomach ache. So anyways, this test came back that everything was normal. But the next appointment I had with my GI doctor then was May 24th. And basically she went over about this test and that, and she goes, well, did you have a stomach ache? I go, yeah, I had a stomach ache. And she goes, well, you had a stomach ache from them giving me an injection. I go, they didn't give me an injection because they couldn't get that medication. And I went through this about 6 or 7 times with her, that they couldn't get that medication, so they had me drink an Ensure, which is obviously going to give me a stomach if I have gastroparesis. Once again, like I said, not the greatest GI doctor. I was kind of, at this point, getting frustrated. She kept telling me, oh, it's not gastroparesis because you shouldn't have pain with gastroparesis. Which, I kind of started researching into this because this was one of her favorite things to say. And it's like, you can look up Cleveland Medical Clinic, John Hopkins, there's another one, Mayo Clinic. They all list for symptoms of gastroparesis abdominal pain. And it turns out that gastroparesis can kind of go 2 different ways. Either you'll vomit or you'll have abdominal pain. And I really didn't vomit. I also had medication for nauseousness that I was taking whenever I felt like I was going to throw up. So I was probably helping me from having to throw up. I didn't throw up. But anyways, this last appointment, I kind of got into it with that a little bit. And I'm like, this one all say that abdominal pain is a thing. And she goes, okay, well, would you be interested in having your gallbladder removed? I'm like, no. Why would I have my gallbladder removed if the test came back fine? And she goes, well, I can refer you to one of the 2 larger clinics in our area, which she did, and they had a 4-month waiting period. And I'm like, I can't wait 4 months. At this point, I don't remember what I was down to for weight, but like I said, the whole time I'm losing weight, and I'm suffering every day with stomach aches, cramping. I'm forcing myself to eat at this point, even though I don't want to, because I know it's just going to result in me feeling like crap. It was a year from hell. So, anyways, like 4 weeks went by, or 2 weeks went by, or 4 weeks went by, and I just like, you know what? She wasn't that great of a GI doctor, so I called a different GI doctor and got an appointment with her, and that was about 4 months out, or not 4 months out, 4 weeks out, which put me into June 20th. So I seen her. She prescribed a different medication to try, and told me to see her again in 4 weeks. Surprise, surprise, medication didn't do a thing. So I seen her July 25th, which now we're, how many months into this? And I'm losing weight like you wouldn't believe. It kind of got to the point where I basically, the last appointment I had with her, that July 25th, she brought up the thing about a feeding tube. She goes, I would love to get you a feeding tube. I think it would benefit you very much. But she goes, I've never prescribed one. The only way I've seen them done is through the ER or through the hospital. So she did a bunch of blood work, hoping that she could find one of my levels or something that was way off or something like that would get me admitted to the hospital. But at this point, I'm living on pretty much Ensures and multivitamins, just trying to keep, because that's what the dietitian has told me is, try your best to keep your vitamins up, your electrolytes up. So all the things I was doing was helping, but here when it was to try to get me into the hospital for a reason, it kind of worked against me. So basically, that following week, I had an appointment with my primary care doctor again, and I'm like, hey, we're still dealing with this. Can we get a feeding tube or something? Like, I need some kind of help. I can't just keep forcing myself to eat to feel like shit. And she basically called me back and said, well, I talked to so-and-so doctor. He agrees to a feeding tube would help you, but he goes, he doesn't want to do it until we try one other prescription. At this point, I was through like 10 different prescriptions for this. And I basically told her, no more prescriptions, because every time you guys prescribe me prescriptions, oh, we'll see you in 4 weeks, see how it goes. Oh, we'll see you in 4 weeks, see how it goes. And in that time, I lose 5 pounds. I was so frustrated at this point, and she goes, well, I'll make you a deal. I'll get everything set up for you to go see a surgeon. I'll get everything set up for you to go see a dietitianist, which sets up the feed and that, or what your prescriptions are on that. And she goes, let me know in a week. Try these prescriptions. Let me know in a week. And big surprise, went through 10 prescriptions already. Big surprise, they didn't work, didn't do a damn thing. Which I'll get into here later. But so I seen a surgeon August 15th for this, to place a feeding tube. And that surgeon kind of gave me the scare of my fucking life, because she looks at me and we're talking about placing a feeding tube, and I picked up my shirt and showed her how bad it was, where you could see every rib. I was way malnourished. I looked as white as a ghost. She basically told me right straight out, she goes, I will not do surgery on you. I will not put a feeding tube in you. I want you to go see a different doctor, and they may do TPN, which is basically nutrition through like an IV. So anyways, that week I also did see a dietitianist again. The dietitianist agreed to that feeding tube would benefit me very good because I obviously have gastroperesis. It's not getting any better. None of the medications are working. So in the meantime, though, I got a hold of the doctor that the surgeon referred me to, and basically he didn't have an opening for like 4 months, and I basically told his receptionist, I cannot wait 4 months. This is something that needs to get taken care of now, or I'm going to the ER. And so basically, I ended up getting to see that doctor too the same week, and he agreed to that a feeding tube would benefit me really good. But he wanted to do another CT scan to check for something else. And he did make an appointment with a different surgeon about placing a feeding tube. This was just this whole clusterfuck show and that. But, so it went like a week. And I didn't hear anything back from the surgeon that was supposed to call me to set up an appointment. I didn't, the CT scan he wanted done was scheduled out like 4 weeks. And at this point, this has been going on for how long? And I'm just at my freaking breaking point. Like, I was done. I was so frustrated. I was beyond words for how I felt, how I looked. I would sleep 10 hours, get up for a couple hours, and go right back to bed. It was so bad. I was so malnourished, so wore down, so just beat down, and just frustrated. So we're into like the 4th week of August now, like August 23rd. And I'm calling around trying to figure out who's supposed to be calling me about placing this feeding tube. Like, I go, it needs to get done. It needs to get done. I don't care at this point. It needs to get done. Everybody's telling me I need a feeding tube because, like, I'm super malnourished. The surgeon scared the shit out of me. Like, I am beyond, like, just frustrated and done. And I spent 2 hours on the phone one day. And I was told that someone was going to call me back. That person never called me back. I spent another 3 hours on the phone and didn't get any answers. I waited the next whole day waiting for somebody to call me back, and no one ever called me back. So this is Thursday now. This is Thursday the 25th of August. And Thursday night, I said, fuck it. That whole week, I was basically down to one Ensure a day. And that Ensure, I'd spread out through the whole day, sipping on it, and just feeling like crap every time I drank the Ensure even. So I kind of just said, fuck it. I did what I told that receptionist I was going to do. I went to the ER. And the ER doctor was super nice, was probably about just as frustrated as I was, and he goes, I don't know how you're dealing with this, because he goes, I have the medical background and don't even know what to think of your medical records for the year and what you've all gone through this year. He goes, this should have been taken care of a lot sooner. You should have never got to the point where you're at now. But he goes, unfortunately, seeing this as a it's a ongoing issue, there's nothing he could do to admit me to the hospital, which I don't know, but he definitely raised some fire underneath some people's asses, apparently, because that next morning at 7:30 in the morning, the doctor I seen the week before about placing the feeding tube calls me. And he goes, so you were in the ER last night? I go, yeah. I go, I can't keep doing this. Like, something needs to get done. He goes, well, I want you to have that CT scan done before we place this feeding tube. And I go, that CT scan's out 4 weeks. That's as soon as they could get me in. And he goes, that's unacceptable. He goes, let me make some phone calls and I will call you back. And I go, are you sure about that? Because I've heard that 3 times this week already. Or last week already that somebody's, no, this week already. This week already that somebody's going to call me back. And he goes, I promise you, I will call you back. If I don't call you back by noon, you call me. This is my personal cell phone number. Here's my number. You call me. Well, by 9 o'clock, he calls me back. He goes, go to so-and-so hospital. They have an opening for you to do this CT scan today. Monday, you have an appointment with a surgeon at this time in the morning. I'm like, fuck yeah. Like, somebody lit a fire under somebody's ass. Had the CT scan. The doctor called me. The following morning, Saturday morning, to tell me that the CT scan came back normal. Because he just wanted to check to make sure there was nothing with the arteries pinching anything off or something along that lines. So now we're August 29th when I've seen a surgeon again to have a feeding tube placed, and he got super awesome surgeon. I brought up the fact about the other surgeon saying that I was super malnourished, that she wouldn't feel comfortable doing the surgery, and he reassured me that he went very much into detail, which is shocking for a doctor to tell you about another doctor. He went very much into detail what happened with the last one and why she's timid of it, and that when the last person wasn't malnourished as I was, but he said the way she did the surgery wasn't quite right, and that caused other problems, which I'm not going to go into the whole situation, but basically her inexperience caused her problems with the last patient that was malnourished, and now she's timid about malnourished patients. She goes, but this doctor I had has been doing this for like 30 years. He goes, I've done hundreds of these. He goes, I promise you I won't do anything that will hurt you. If I don't feel comfortable, I will stop, and we'll go through TPN. We'll get your nutrition back up, and we'll try it again. And at this point, I didn't even know this, but apparently the doctor I was seeing for the feeding tube, an internal medicine doctor, the surgeon, and somebody else all had like an hour-long phone conference about me and what would be the best option, whether they should do TPN, feeding tube, blah, 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 because of how malnourished I was at this point. I found that out later after the surgery. But he goes, we need to get this done now. And it was with me and him talking. He goes, I can do this kind of feeding tube, or I can do a J tube. He goes, I would rather do a J tube. The other type of tube they could do is a PEG J, which goes through the abdomen into the stomach, and then through the stomach into the intestines. But what can happen with that is the hose that goes from the stomach to the intestines can end back up in the stomach all the time, and they have a lot of problems with that. So he goes, I would recommend you do a J tube. He goes, but I'll let that one up to you. He goes, in my discussion he goes, you obviously have done your research on this, which I have read way too much on this at this point, and yeah, this is kind of uncomfortable with talking about all this shit from the year, just to let you know, because it was a fucking year from hell. But anyways, he goes, I got an opening at this hospital Friday. I want you to take that opening. He goes, gives you a week to decide what you want to do. We'll get you in for this surgery and have it done. So now we're September 2nd. I go in for surgery. And basically before surgery, he goes, I had talked to some other colleagues. He goes, I really think you should go to J-tube. I go, that's fine. Go for it. So I ended up with a feeding tube then, which goes right through my abdomen. It was a little different style tube than what I have now. I'll post some pictures of right after surgery and that probably in here as I'm talking. So then I had a home health company, home health nurse come in and help me get everything set up and figure out how this works. First we tried with like a gravity bag. So it's just like a normal IV bag and it drips through a little thing and it's supposed to go in on its own. But did not work with mine. So we tried going with a pump then at that point, which is in this bag, but we tried doing it real fast to try to get all the formula in like an hour 3 times a day. So I'd only have to be hooked up to it for like an hour 3 times a day and it would get all the nutrition I need. Tried that and I started having really bad abdominal cramps. So we went to continuous feeding, which probably should have went from the start. But I seen him a week after surgery. I seen my internal medicine doctor a week after surgery, which was September 8th. And we discussed how everything was going. That's when he actually recommended doing the 24-hour feeding and that, which went really good actually after that. So I seen him in then again, September 22nd, and at this point, I'm already gaining weight back. I'm got more energy again. I'm feeling a hell of a lot better than what I did. Still having a home health nurse come in once a week to just check everything out, make sure I was going good. They were super worried about refeeding syndrome, which basically when you don't eat for a long extended period of time and then you start getting nutrition again, your whole body can kind of freak out and all your levels, your blood sugar, your A1C, all your levels will just go boom, 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 boom. The doctor goes, if you've seen a chart of a blood work of somebody who actually had refeeding syndrome, you'll be like, what the hell is going on? But I actually didn't have that problem, which one good thing. So when they did the feeding tube, they put these like anchors, pins in it to hold it in place while it heals. So I seen the surgeon again at the end of September. We're now talking September 28th to have them pins removed, and the surgeon goes, you look a hell of a lot better than what you did just a month ago. He goes, I was scared for you. I was honestly scared for you. Which, when a surgeon that sees patients all the time is telling you that, you knew you were super malnourished. And if you're squeamish, look away for about a minute. I'm going to put a picture of how bad it looked. I'll put a picture that I took the night before having a feeding tube placed of how bad it was. Okay, so anyways, he took them anchors out, and the next day, the feeding tube wanted to like come out. Didn't want to stay in, was pushing out. I had to keep pushing it back in. I actually taped all over top of it to hold it in. And I called him and he goes, well, it can kind of do that once in a while. He goes, I don't think anything's wrong because you were just here yesterday and everything looked fine. And I'm like, okay. I just lost my place on my calendar. So anyways, everything looked fine with it, but the following week I was still having problems, and I called him Monday. I go, there's something not right with this tube now. So I seen him on Tuesday, and basically what happened is they don't actually remove the anchors, they just cut the stitches on the outside of the anchors, and they'll either do one or two things. They'll either stay in place and just end up there, or they'll fall into your intestines and pass through your body normally. Mine apparently must have dropped down and cut the balloon. So these feeding tubes are basically a tube, but they got like a balloon that they inflate on the inside to hold them in place so they can't come out. And with the J tube, it's also got a real long, like 2-foot piece that snakes through your intestines. And so there's no way to replace it yourself. It's actually got to be replaced through interventional radiology under fluoroscopy. which is kind of like X-ray but real time. So that balloon popped, and that's why the tube wanted to keep working its way out, because there was nothing holding it in anymore. So that Wednesday I had that tube replaced, which was slightly concerning because they don't like to replace these tubes until about 4 weeks after they're in. 4 to 6 weeks after they're in, because it needs to form. It's like an ear piercing, kind of, if you think of it like that. You know, they cut on the outside of your stomach, they cut your intestines, and basically that 4 weeks it kind of heals into like this tract. And basically they were really a little nervous about changing the tube at that point, but it went good. And I'll kind of put a picture up of what that fluoroscopy machine looks like. But that tube was pretty good. That one lasted, I seen, October 27th, I seen my internal medicine doctor again, just as a checkup. Everything was still going good, so he was happy with that. That tube made it all the way to... That tube was good yet. So anyways, they replaced the tube. I seen my internal medicine doctor October 27th, and he talked about the low-profile Mickey tubes that he thinks I should go to one of them too, because this is probably going to be in for a while. They're more comfortable. They don't get hung up on clothes so bad, which is kind of what I have now, but that was a whole... We'll get into that. But he goes, call me in about 2 weeks, 2-3 weeks, and remind me about it, and I'll set up an appointment for that. So... we're now into November 27th. I called him to get set up for that. Once again, was supposed to get called back about setting that up. Never got called back. And then around mid-December, I finally got in. Okay, so second week in December, I started having, pain around the tube, and I kind of like, something's not right here. And so I went to see my internal medicine doctor again, and everything looked fine at that point, but 2 or 3 days later, the tube was coming out by itself. So whatever pain I was having had to do with that tube. So the following week, I ended up calling and be like, hey, this tube wants to come out again. The balloon's probably deflated again. They don't really last forever because they're subjected to your inside of your body, and so that got replaced again. That got replaced again December 16th, which they were supposed to replace it with what I have now, but they didn't, so they replaced it with the long dangly tube that I had before. And they had to order a thing to measure that distance from the inside of the stomach, or inside of the intestines to the outside of your body. It's called the stoma length. They didn't have a device there to measure it, so they had to order one of them. I was told, oh, we'll get this taken care of before the end of the year to meet so it's all on your deductible for this year. Well, that following week I had COVID, so I didn't really call back and push about it. And then that led us into January. So, beginning of January, I called them. I called interventional radiology again. Like, hey, did you guys ever get that thing in? And they go, oh, let me check on it. We'll give you a call back. And story of my life, Corey never got a call back. So the following week I called, and I left a message for one of the nurses to call me back, a certain nurse. And she called me back at 5:30 at night, just before she was going to go home and be there. And it's like, yeah, you called and said it wasn't an emergency, but you wanted to call back. And I explained to her, and she goes, oh, no one ever called you back about that? I'm like, no. She goes, weren't we supposed to have that taken care of last year? I go, yep. And I think she felt really bad. So she called me back the next morning at 7 o'clock in the morning and said, hey, we got an opening for you today. We can come in and measure that. So I went in order for them to measure it, they actually have to pull the whole tube out, slip this thing in to the hole, the tract or whatever, measure it, pull that device back out, and then put the tube back in, all underneath interventional radiology. So did that, and that Thursday I got a phone call back and he says, "Oh well, we can't find any tubes. They're all out of stock right now, back order. We can't get that kind of tube. The soonest we can get one is mid-February." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I put in my calendar, like beginning of February to call them back about changing the tube. Well, that was January 12th, and January 16th she called me at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Monday morning and says, "Hey, our supply guy managed to track 2 of them down from a different hospital. We have them here. We got an opening today at 10 o'clock. We can change that tube." I'm like, awesome! Made my fucking day. Like, super pumped. Went in, changed the tube to basically this tube I have now, which is so much closer and so much nicer. It doesn't get hung up on everything. Super happy until about 11 o'clock that night. And I just felt off. There's a lot of things that can go wrong when they change these tubes. They can puncture your intestines, and then you have lots of bad things where the formula can end up in your abdominal cavity, which can cause all sorts of infection and bad problems. And I started just feeling cold. I started having a fever. I had a headache. I was having cramping in the intestines, which I had some cramping before. You kind of get some cramping when they change these tubes, but never to the point of where I was, where it was super bad cramping. Sorry about the police scanner, but something just didn't seem right. At this point, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm running like 102-degree fever. So I went into the ER. They checked it all out. I had a CT scan of my abdomen. The tube was where it was supposed to be. There was no punctures. There's nothing like that. No fluid where there shouldn't have been. Turns out that it was just a awkward, really weird coincidence. I can't really tell you about the cramping, but by that Wednesday, I was sick again with something I probably picked up from going to the hospital them 2 days. Yeah. So that brings me to this past week. Last week Thursday, I seen my doctor, my internal medicine doctor again, and he goes, everything looks good. The only thing he really brought up was trying to speed up the rate I'm going at to try to get this so we could just run it at night, which I tried last night and it didn't go very good. Trying to step it up. We're going to step it up over 3 weeks, and it was not good. I had lots of cramping. So yeah, I think we're going to end up having to stay on 24-hour feedings, and it is what it is. My little friend here does me good. Yeah, so that was basically my last year. And I'm actually up to weight that I'm okay with. I wouldn't say I'm happy with it yet, but I look a hell of a lot better than what I did before. I have energy. I don't feel like crap. The whole big thing was with all the weight I lost. My body basically ran out of fat to eat, so it started eating muscle. So I lost a lot of muscle mass, which I wasn't really a big guy to start with. I was 140 pounds to start with, and I got all the way down to the lowest I was 101.8 or something like that. Which, if you do the math, is like over 25% of my body weight. I went from like 18% body fat down to 5%, and I think that's as low as my scale would go because it stayed at 5% for like 3 months. And I know them scales aren't really accurate for body fat, but I'm sure there was next to nothing, and I'm pretty sure that's what scared the crap out of the surgeon when he did the surgery and why he was so worried about me. Yeah, so as far as the gastroparesis, oh yeah, I should also point out in there, beginning of December, I did see a doctor at UW-Madison, which is a big University of Wisconsin hospital. They're very good and they know what they're talking about. I did see a doctor down there, and he basically goes, that is your best bet. I think he was surprised too on how knowledgeable I was about this, and that there isn't too much out there on gastroparesis, and there isn't too much research out there on it, and there isn't really very many cures on it. So there's a couple different types of gastroparesis you can have. You can have post-surgical gastroparesis, so people who get their stomachs tied or stapled, whatever they do, or bands or whatever, can damage the nerve, and you can have delayed gastric emptying with that. There's diabetic gastroparesis, which there seems to be a little bit more research on that. I didn't understand how that affects it and how that affects the vagus nerve. And then you have idiopathic gastroparesis, which is a fancy word of, pardon my French, but we have no fucking idea where the hell we're going, what the hell caused it. That's basically what that means, which is the category I'm in. And then you have post-viral, so certain viral infections. I think it's the rhinovirus is one of them, which is like the flu, I believe, can sometimes cause this. But like the doctor I seen in UW-Madison said, he goes, normally if it's post-viral, it goes away within about a year. I've seen, the longest I've seen was about 2 years, so I'm gonna say if it doesn't go away by like next year around this time, it unfortunately probably isn't gonna go away on its own. The other thing that is pretty popular that you'll find about this when you read about this a lot is a gastric electric pacemaker, or GED. Yeah, GED. So basically what that is like a pacemaker for your heart, but instead of the leads going to your heart, they put basically the same type of device in, and the leads go to your stomach to shock your stomach to try to get it to contract and squeeze what's in your stomach out. Talking to the doctor at UW-Madison says when this came out, which came out in like 2002, this was supposed to be the cure-all, end-all, the best thing around, fix every solution for gastroparesis, and it did not turn out to be that. He said a lot of patients get referred down to them for this, and the surgeon turns them away unless they have diabetic gastroparesis, because the effectiveness on diabetic gastroparesis seems to be about 50%, but idiopathic gastroparesis, a lot of the clinical reports that I've read, and he also mentioned it too, they basically can't tell the difference between if it's on or off, which basically means they can't tell if it's working or not. It's just this whole shit show. So unfortunately, I mean, I hate to say it, but this is probably my friend for a while. So that's kind of why a couple friends that are in the medical field kind of encourage me to go, post it out for Gastroparesis Awareness Week, because it's something that everybody knows about, and there's so many different types of feeding tubes. So you got an NG feeding tube. I'm going to go turn that off here. Hold a second. So you got an NG feeding tube, which goes through your nose, down your throat, into your stomach, which is kind of like a temporary thing. They don't do that long term. Normally that's done if you're in the hospital for a while, or if you're waiting to get a feeding tube or whatever. Or you have an NJ, which is the same thing, through your nose, down into your stomach, but it goes through your stomach into the intestines, kind of where my tube goes into the intestines. You have a G tube, which goes straight into the stomach, and you have a J tube, which goes straight into the intestines. You also have a GJ tube, which goes into the stomach, and then there's a line that comes off that into the intestines. That also allows you to drain stomach contents or whatever. But yeah, so there's a whole bunch of crap about this, and basically through this whole thing, I also found out that a lot of doctors are very timid about feeding tubes, and a lot of doctors don't know very much about them, and a lot of doctors are very scared to recommend them. Like I said, at the point I was pretty much begging for one because I just couldn't force myself to eat anymore. I lived on Ensures for probably about 3 months, and it was, if I was lucky, 2 Ensures a day, which is somewhere around 500 calories a day. It got to the point where I was only drinking one a day, which is like 230 calories, I think one was. And that's all I was eating all day. And the only reason I did that even is because I knew I needed to have at least something. Yeah, it wasn't a good year, and I am so happy for this. It sounds so stupid, but I am so fucking happy for this. Like, this is nothing compared to dealing with horrible cramping, feeling like you're gonna throw up, feeling like shit every single day. And I had that for 8 months. And it was freaking torture. And then, you don't want to just sit around all day curled up in a ball feeling like crap. So then you get in this phase where you're not eating anything in the morning and you're waiting till night. You don't eat anything all day. You go work on what you want to work on, or go outside, or take care of what you need to take care of. In my case, it was mowing lawns or trimming bushes or whatever. And then you get home at like 5 o'clock and you start drinking an Ensure just to feel like shit all night. Like, honestly, I really gotta thank that ER doctor that lit a fire underneath somebody's ass. I would love to see what sort of internal email he sent or something. I mean, I got my medical records, and I don't see anything in there from him, but he obviously lit a fire underneath somebody's ass, because both the surgeon and the internal medicine doctor I was seeing were both on vacation when they called me. And what sounds like when they had their little hour-long conference, they were all on vacation. So I apparently scared enough people at that point that they realized they need to get their head out of their butt and get some shit taken care of. So I remember I said about medication, the 10 prescriptions I was on. So when I ended up with COVID around December, I had a headache, and I was taking Tylenol, and it wouldn't do a damn thing. I was taking it orally through my mouth and that, not really thinking about it, and it wouldn't do a damn thing. So when I ended up going to the ER the second time, after they changed the tube, and I thought there was something going on, I had that fever, my doctor called me again the next day. He was actually calling me to see how I liked this new style tube. He didn't even know I went to the ER yet at that point. But when I started talking to him that, and he started asking me, how do you like that new tube? And I go, I like it, but I ended up in the ER last night. And talking to him and that, and I go, so what can I do for a headache? Because I'm taking Tylenol and it doesn't do a damn thing. You taking it orally? I go, yeah. He goes, go get children's Tylenol, liquid Tylenol, and put it through your feeding tube. Did that. It worked so much better. So that kind of leads me to the suspicion that the 10, 11, 12 medications I've tried, none of them are making it through my stomach, which is why none of them worked. Which is something I don't even think the doctors thought about at this point, which is, I don't know. there's my story. I'll post some videos this week of basically how I set this up every day, how I take care of it. If you want to check them out, be sure to check them out. I don't know how long this video is, but my voice is going. Hopefully you found this interesting. I hope I don't gotta do too much editing. I probably shoved a bunch of pictures in here. Like I said, this is off the cuff. This isn't scripted. I don't script my videos. But what I will do is I'll show you kind of what a J-tube looks like. So, I'm trying to look behind the camera. This is what's called a low-profile Mickey tube, and it goes right in. Everything's backwards from what I'm looking at. It goes right in here, and if you can see, if you look carefully, you can kind of see a hole where it goes in. But basically, I can take this piece off, which you'll see in some of the other videos if you watch them. That this piece can come off. This right here, oh my god, this is hard. This right here is where the balloon gets filled, inflated. Like, I can pull on this and it's not coming out because there's a balloon holding it in. That goes down to this piece right here, which is where you can put medication in, flush the line, all that fun stuff. And then this right here, where this connects, is going to a feed bag that is connected to the pump. And yeah, that is how I eat. And I was told by pretty much all the doctors to occasionally try eating stuff, and yeah, every time I do it ends up with me not feeling like good. So it's not getting any better. In some cases, I almost wonder if it's getting worse, but that's what we're up to. This video is like an hour long now, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'll show you my high-tech cameraman here. Yeah, there you go. And Infinity TV right there for you. Cheating. But yeah, so I'm actually looking past you guys at the TV. But hopefully you guys liked this video. Like I said, give it a like, comment, rate, subscribe. Hopefully you guys found this informative, and kind of explain why there wasn't very many videos last year, and why I say last year was the year from hell. This year's going much better though. Yeah. We're gonna end this here. Like I said, check out some of the other videos this week, and yeah. Anyways, back to Infinity TVs. Have a nice day.
So a few more things. If you made it to the 58 minutes of this video, and found this informative and liked this video and made it to the end of this video, do me a favor, let me know you made it to the end of the video by commenting radioactive eggs down below in the comments. And if you like this video, found it informative and educational, like I said, this whole week is Feeding Tube Awareness Week, and I'm going to post a couple other videos on here. You can check the comments. I'll pin a comment on top to a playlist, and I will also put that playlist in the description where all the videos will be by the end of the week. And yeah, thank you guys for watching through this video, and just kind of get the knowledge out there. Feel free to share this video with whatever you want to. And if you're a medical professional, this is just kind of the experience your patients go through with this stuff. So hopefully you guys found this educational too. And if you want to talk about it more or something like that, my email is also linked in the description. Thanks for watching.